Outrage increasing over a controversial plan by President Biden's Justice Department to investigate parents who voice concerns about their children's education. The Department of Justice is encouraging school officials to report parents they see as a threat to the FBI. The New York Post summing it up this way: are these domestic terrorists? Parents have been speaking up at heated school board meetings. We've covered them. But getting the feds involved, for many, that's a step too far. Republicans vowing to get answers from the White House.
This is a dangerous overreach by the Biden administration to sic the feds on parents who simply want to play a role in their kids' education.
Anytime that this administration doesn't like opposition, anytime it doesn't like a political point of view, they try to silence it, and they're willing to use federal law enforcement power to do it.
This is wrong. This is against what America believes fundamentally. Education is the great equalizer, but now we're saying government is the only people that have a say, not your parents.
What they are saying is, you take what we're going to give you. If you challenge a government takeover of your children, if you challenge what we are doing, we're going to turn you over to the FBI.
And these past statements from President Biden are getting attention, where he promised he would not politicize the DOJ.
I would not direct my Justice Department like this president does. I'd let them make their independent judgment.
The Justice Department under my administration will be totally independent of me. I will not direct them who to prosecute, how to prosecute, what to prosecute.
It's not my Justice Department. It's the people's Justice Department.
Jesse, even Jesse Jr. is old enough to remember when the Democrats thought that President Trump would weaponize the DOJ.
It's funny that you said that. Jesse Jr. came out of his crib today and he said, "Dad, the First Amendment specifically prohibits Congress from abridging the right of the people to peaceably to assemble and petition the government for a redress of grievances." Now, these parents have a lot of grievances because if a teacher tells your son you're racist, you're going to complain. Or if a teacher says, I'm going to slap a mask on your child for 6 hours, 5 days a week, you're going to complain. If the teacher says your daughter has to share a locker room with a guy, you're going to complain. So it seems like the Democrats go out of their way to protect the free speech rights of terrorists, anthem kneelers, statue topplers, leakers, and pornographers. But little Miss Simmons, if she gets upset about something at a school board meeting, the G-men are going to come show up at her door. And what is the FBI going to do? They're going to do what they always do. They're going to infiltrate the PTA meetings. They're going to entrap a soccer mom, all while people are trafficking women and they're ignoring tips about school shooters. That's what usually happens here. I think parents should resist this. They'll become folk heroes if Joe Biden's team tries to throw them in prison for opposing their liberal agenda. And Dana, I don't know if you saw Andy McCarthy today in the National Review. He's got a great piece.
Thank you.
One of the lines from the FBI, this is their mantra: process is the penalty. So what they do is they threaten these federal investigations, very torturous and expensive. They threaten indictments, which can ruin your life. And what that does is that chills speech. So they're basically extorting silence from their political opponents, and no one's ever going to stop them unless parents stand up.
Is there any role here for the FBI?
Absolutely not. This is something, if there's a problem, you call the local police, you call the sheriff's department, you call the DA. The last person you want to call is the FBI, because we already know how they botched, whether it's the Nassar case in the Olympics or whether it was the Parkland school shooting, or I could go on, the Epstein case and on and on. They have no role in this. The FBI likes to get involved where they get a lot of headlines. Right. But let me focus more on the issue. What is important here? What's important here are parents have a fundamental right to decide what is going to be in their child's education. These are not people who don't have a say. It's their children, not the state's children. And what's so incredible about all of this is that we've got little Johnny who's coming home from school, and Johnny says he's getting yelled at in class. He's 6 years old. He wears glasses. And when he pulls down his mask, when his glasses fog up, the teacher yells at him to put his mask back up. Yep. And we've got kids like this all over the country who are spending spending more time cleaning their desks than they are actually learning anything. And then we have the issue of, other kids who are now being put in, another kid in advanced algebra, when last year she didn't even learn fundamental algebra because the teachers weren't even in school. I think the teachers are the last people that Americans see as victims in this case. If anything, they were made rich during a pandemic. They didn't want to come to work, and now they want to yell at our children. And there was a time when they were celebrities. They used to be celebrities. Now kids see their teachers on the street. Their teachers don't recognize them because they're all masked up. Yeah. They don't even know who their students are. It is absolutely not the role of the feds.
Jessica, is it possible to be charitable to the White House and the DOJ that this is yet another example of them not explaining something well, sending out a memo, and then not actually dealing with the communications fallout?
It's totally feasible. And to pick up on something that Jesse said, use the word peaceful, which is critical to the First Amendment and an understanding of how these meetings should go. We all realize that even if you disagree with someone, you should treat them with respect. You shouldn't get in their faces. There's video of teachers and school board members being accosted on the street. It's my impression, just understanding, President Biden and the people who work for him, Merrick Garland, they don't seem like irrational people, that they are going to be talking about folks who are taking this to an inappropriate level versus just someone who's saying, excuse me, I don't agree with this bit of the curriculum. And most parents, I think, should understand that the mask mandates are not coming from the teachers themselves. That's coming from the higher on ups there.
But the FBI involvement.
The FBI involvement doesn't seem to make a ton of sense. Right. And it also might be one of those things that we get upset about for a few weeks. It never comes to fruition. It was kind of an aside thing that Merrick Garland did comment on because...
Well, maybe he got a call from the White House and he was like, okay, fine, I'll put out the memo. But anyway, they did it, and it's got a lot of attention, and a lot of people are mad and upset, and they were mad before. But just this week, President Biden, when he was asked about the harassment of Kyrsten Sinema, the senator from Arizona, when she was followed into the bathroom, he said it's part of the process. Right. Which was basically like saying, this happens to everybody and it's okay. It's not okay. And Kirsten Powers, she's at CNN, she said, had this tweet. Which is worse, your grandparents being deported or being followed into a bathroom because you refuse to stop and listen by people desperate for your help? This is not a trick question.
Wow. Yeah. And then I think when people called her on this, she said, hey, look, if Kirsten didn't want to be, bothered in the bathroom, she shouldn't have gone to the bathroom. That's kind of like saying you asked for it. This is part of two trends. Biden's okay with that, but they're not okay with hypothetical crimes. What that person did in the bathroom could be construed as a crime, coming in with a camera and filming somebody. But what you're seeing is we are criminalizing the life of an average American decent citizen while we stop targeting criminals. So now you can shoplift anything under $900. You can beat people up on the streets in New York. You get out like that. But hypothetically, you could be a threat, a domestic threat, if they decide that's the case. And so what they're doing is these trends are happening at once. Crime is being decriminalized. Decent citizens are being criminalized at the same time, at the same rate. And it is happening. To the fake feminist, Kirsten Powers. Do you remember her? She was a familiar face here, always lecturing us on how poorly women in politics are treated and the need for grace. It was always about grace in civil life. And then she goes after Sinema. She felt that this was a cause for confrontation. She's a hypocrite. But this is the same logic that she's using. Like, some issues are so important that you have to confront people. That was the same reason that Ashley Babbitt had when she went to the Capitol and she was murdered. An unarmed protester shot dead. Right. I did a search. I couldn't find anything by Kirsten Powers about Ashley Babbitt, like saying, oh my God, this woman went to speak truth to power, no pun intended, and she was murdered. You'd think Kirsten Powers would go like, oh, because you know what? They might share religious similarity. I wouldn't be surprised if they're both religious. But I think that when it comes to this bathroom stuff, Kirsten Powers isn't turning the other cheek, literally. She's made her name lecturing people on grace, and then she goes to CNN and does an about-face. Hypocrite. Nice. She deserves to be called out.
And it rhymed.
It rhymed. And that was totally spontaneous.
I loved it.
Thank you.